Welcome in, everybody, to another live edition on a Thursday night of 410 Sports Talk. As always, James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin and DK in the background running the show. We are excited to be here with you tonight for a multitude of reasons. Of course, it's the Ravens offseason and things are moving and shaking. The draft is getting closer. We got a ton to talk about that way. We're going to dig more into the OBJ and the wide receiver room and things like that. But, ladies and gentlemen, we got a special guests for you guys tonight, and we cannot wait.
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, good evening, James. Appreciate you joining me as always. Shout out to everybody in the chat. But yeah, exciting show tonight. Anytime you can have a former player on the show, I mean, it's certainly a good one. But I think some of the fans, if I know there's a whole new wave of new generation fans that Lamar Jackson has brought to the Ravens. But those of us have been around a little bit longer than since Lamar's come to town, we'll certainly remember our next guest. So without further ado, former Ravens tight end Daniel Wilcox is joining the show. So I got to bring in Daniel now. Appreciate you joining us, Daniel.
Yeah.
My man.
James, Glenn, man, thank you guys for having me on. Really appreciate it. DK, appreciate you too for reaching.
DK, he certainly deserves the credit for making all this possible. And thank you so much, I'm sure. You're a busy man. So I want to start kind of where everything started for you, Daniel, because this is draft time. This is a time where, prospects are trying to get themselves ready. Those who are hopeful are trying to see where they fit in, whether it's in the draft or after the draft. I know you signed, as an undrafted free agent with the New York Jets. And so I want to know, what was that process like? What were your hopes? Were you hoping to be drafted? Take me through.
Yeah, were you getting some calls about hey, you're
down?
expected to go in this round? Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's a great question, guys. So my story was a little different. I was JUCO kid, so played 2 years of JUCO ball at Georgia Military and came out, went to Appalachian State, moved to tight end the end of my junior year, balled out my last 4 or 5 games at tight end, and then I came back my senior season and had a heck of a year, almost 90 catches at tight end, almost 1,000 yards at tight end, tons of touchdowns, rushing and passing and stuff like that. And a lot of scouts, a lot of, guys came up to App State, up to the mountain, up to the rock, and worked me out. Had personal workouts with coaches, personal workout with scouts, did a lot of stuff back and forth on the phone. I hired Champ Bailey's agent. So I had Champ Bailey's agent since I'm a Georgia guy as well. And I really had high hopes of getting drafted. I really always dreamed that day would come for me, just like any other young man that go about doing this thing. Nobody wants to be an undrafted free agent. That's not the glory road to get there. So me personally, I really was biting my nails. I was hoping it was going to happen. And a bunch of teams had told me, let me not say a bunch of teams because they're kind of giving me a big head, right? Let me say 4 or 5 teams was out of the 32 was calling me saying, hey, we're going to probably draft you. We think you're a diamond in the rough. Wade Harmon, who was the tight end coach in Baltimore for a long, long time. He was my coach when I got back to Baltimore 4 years later. He told me that I was the best all-around athlete that he worked out that year, which was saying a lot, awesome. Right? So I fell in love with Wade on our individual workout. He actually, the tight ends coach, actually came to App State to work me out up on the rock on the mountain up at Boone, and we had a really good rapport. Mind you, they drafted Todd Heap that year. Yeah. So when they drafted Heap first round, I knew I wasn't going to Baltimore at that point, but that wasn't stopping teams from calling me, telling me that I was going to get drafted in the 4th round, 5th round, 6th round, 7th round. I think it started in the 5th round for me. I got a phone call, said, hey, if you're still around, we're going to pick you up. And then 6th round came, hey, if you're still around, we're going to pick you up. And then 7th round came, hey, if you're still around, we're going to pick you up. Well, all 3 of those rounds came and went. And I'm sitting at my home, trying to figure out, all right, so what's next? Immediately after the draft was over, my phone started blowing up. Bling, bling. I'm talking about everybody calling. Everybody. I had maybe 18 different teams calling me. And the way it works is during the draft, they actually get a chance to pick you during the draft. When the draft's over with, you get a chance to pick them.
So they're in full-on recruiting mode.
Right. Hey, man, we didn't get a chance to grab you at the draft. Hey, we want to invite you to camp. Yeah, we love you up, man. We think you'll be a perfect fit for us, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just, my phone back and forth. I have no idea what's going on. I'm in shock. I'm freaking out. I'm calling my agent. Hey, man, these teams are calling me. I don't know which one is the best pick for me. They was well, you ain't got a lot of time because when they call you, they calling everybody else at the same time. As soon as somebody else accepts, then you miss out. So teams started kind of dropping off one by one, one by one, one by one. And I was going to Baltimore up until they drafted Todd Heap. Right. So once Baltimore picked Todd, from that point on, I had no idea where I wanted to go. So I kind of told my agents, I say, man, I need you to do your job right now. Like, check every roster, every team that's calling me, check their rosters, see which one is the best fit for me, what kind of offense they run, whether or not I fit into their scheme. I'm a hybrid. I'm not like your regular tight end.
Yeah.
I'm almost what everybody has now.
Yeah, nowadays.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I was kind of before my time at 6'3", 228 pounds coming out of college at tight end, and I ran a 4.45 on my pro day.
Wow.
So it gave me the opportunity to be very sought out there. Baltimore had Shannon Sharp, who's almost identical height, size, weight, but he built way different than I'm built, right? So they had Shannon Sharp, so that made sense for Baltimore to me. Then they got Todd Heap, which also made sense, and they had Ben Coates, so which also made sense in my favor. We end up picking the Jets because they didn't have anybody on their roster like me. And he was like, well, I feel like this is the best fit for you because everybody on their roster is 6'7", 6'8", 300 pounds at tight end, 285. They had Anthony Beck, first round pick out of Virginia. He's the head coach right now at one of the XFL teams, I think. Anthony Beck. Yeah, but Anthony Beck was like their first round pick. The backup tight end was they starting long snapper James Durth, who's still a good friend of mine. Love James to death. And we decided that was the best fit. Get a speedy guy, small guy, hybrid type guy. They had a fullback by the name of Richie Anderson, who's a Pro Bowler who went to a ton of Pro Bowls in New York, and then they had Gerald Soule behind him at fullback. And my agents kind of felt like I would be a transition between fullback and tight end. And that's kind of exactly what happened. I was so much ahead of my time that when I got to New York, Herman Edwards and company Paul Hackett, they didn't have a clue what to do with me. So they put me at tight end first, and then they moved me from tight end to slot receiver. Then they moved me from slot receiver to fullback. Then they moved me from fullback back to tight end. And they just kind of had this revolving circle going for my first 2 years, man. And it was a really crazy experience, just kind of not knowing exactly who I was or what position I was going to play. And then every time they moved me, they was like, forget everything you just learned. Learn this. Forget everything you just learned. Learn this, So it was that type of thing my rookie year. But the draft process for me was definitely different from most. It's extremely hard as an undrafted free agent to kind of go through that process. And at the end of the day, you're happy that one team wants you, more or less 5, 10, 15, 20. If you can get one team that likes you, that's all you really need.
Yeah,
right.
one GM or one coach that believes in you.
Well,
I'm going to squeeze this in here real quick because Numera is a longtime commenter. So he says, "What's goody? Hey, Daniel Wilcox. If you're not familiar with the show, we typically have." And then he misspells my name intentionally. Glenn
on
Merton,
purpose. He's a troll.
On the show, show a random body part, which it's a long story, but now he just wants to see my smile again. Purposely misspells my name. OBJ is a Raven. Yeah, it's so we'll go right to that, I guess, and then I'm sure I stepped all over Jimbo here, but
yeah,
I gotta unless you want to ask about OBJ.
No.
Go ahead. I gotta ask your opinion because some viewed it as an overpayment. Some people question, what type of OBJ you're getting after now his second ACL. You're someone who's dealt with tough injuries in the past. So when you look at this signing by the Ravens, do you look at it as an overpayment to get a guy to come, when you're desperate, or do you have concerns about the ACL, or what's your take in general about OBJ coming to Baltimore?
I think it's a great business move. When I think about the Baltimore Ravens as a franchise, Steve Bisciotti, the owner, to me is still to this day like one of if not the best owner in the league. My top two, like hands down. Love Steve to death. He's a phenomenal business guy. At the end of the day, you're talking about, a guy that has a name and a brand that's elite, that's separate from everybody else in the league. And he's done a phenomenal job of branding himself. So to be able to pack seats and put people in the stands, I mean, from a marketing branding standpoint, to have OBJ in a Ravens uniform, even selling that jersey every day, every week, there's going to be people coming just to see him play. Hopefully he stays healthy and hopefully he's in great shape. And he's not the type of guy that's going to be a lazy, guy trying to rehab. He goes all in, he goes hard. He's one of those guys that loves to be in the gym. And if he didn't, the Ravens wouldn't have took a shot on him. You know, I really do. I think it was a good move by them. You know, the 18 mil, 15 mil mark that they gave him, you know, that is a little bit high, you know, considering the fact that he didn't play at all last season. And but what you're paying for is a brand, and you're paying for a guy, you're paying for a little bit of everything, and you're paying for a little bit of respect when your offense hit the field too as well. Don't get it twisted. You know, it's still going to be some teams out there that are going to say, all right, they got OBJ. Let's see what he got. At least those first 3 or 4 weeks, they're going to be trying to figure out whether or not, you know, they should double him or single him, or, you know, if they could just put one guy on him one-on-one until he goes out there and show people that he could put 200 yards up on him like he did against the Ravens a couple of years back. You know, they're gonna one-on-one put one of their best. They're not gonna put. I don't think they'll put their best guy on him, because I think Mark Andrews still kind of pull that draw. Yeah. I think if I was a DC, I'm putting my best DB, my biggest DB, my best DB on Mark Andrews the entire game to give him fits all day long. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what they do. And I think with a speech style side like Bateman, I think, you know, I think it's going to free him up some too. Nice. You know, it's going to be a lot more one-on-one coverages and stuff like that, and they're going to have to play a lot more zone. And if they play zones, I think Lamar is a really good zone thrower. So, I mean, it might help us out a lot.
Yeah. No, I think that the risk, we kind of talked about this in the last show. People talk about the money overall. I think really the risk is only in the way that they paid him, right? Like giving it to him up front and instead of, you know, throughout the year. There are some implications there that you just simply can't take it back, right? Like you already gave him the money. If he gets hurt, he's hurt, and you're kind of, you know, it's a $15 million gamble, and it is what it is, right? But ultimately, I agree with you, and I think Glenn and I both came to that. We're excited about it. But I want to go back real quick, and we'll jump back to now, because I mean, everybody in America seems to be obsessed with the underdog story, right? And I certainly am no different. I love the underdog story. I'll admit, I think Glenn already knows this. My favorite movie series of all time is Rocky. I'm like ridiculously obsessed with Rocky too. Yeah, man. I could watch it over and over, man. I have this tradition. Race week, I watch all the Rockies.
Hey, yo, Adrian. Hey, yo, Adrian. You know,
we did it.
Yeah, you ain't so bad. You ain't so bad.
I love it. So what I wanted to ask though was, you know, you go through those first 2 years, but what happened? You got to Baltimore. I mean, if you're to pull up your stats, like no stats registered, get to Baltimore, boom, things start taking off. Yeah. What was it that changed? Was it, you think, the coaching and the opportunity, or was there also something that changed for you that kind of coincided with that additional opportunity that you got?
James, that's a heck of a question, man. You know, I don't think I've ever had anybody ask me that question, but I'm going to try to make this story short. All right.
Hey, well, we're here for you.
Yeah. That's so my first year in the league, I get to the Jets. Like I told you, I bounced around. They didn't know what position to play me at. Year 2 come around, in the offseason, they asked me to gain weight. You know, I came in at like 228, 225, you know, blowing past all the safeties and linebackers. And they was like, hey, we need you to gain another 20 pounds and come back like 250. You know, so I came back 255, you know, going into my sophomore season in New York, did the weight. But I had played in 3 games prior the year before, and I was on the active roster for over half the season, my rookie year. And then my sophomore season, they put me on a practice squad the entire year. So week 9, week 10 come, my agent called me and asked me, you know, hey, man, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are calling. Are you interested in being a Buccaneer? I was like, hell yeah. Like, mind you, year 2 on the practice squad, you know, I was the kid that's like, bro, I don't care. If I get put on the practice squad or whatever, I don't care what I take to be in the NFL. I just want to be there. I just wanted to be on the team in the NFL. I was like, I'll be the practice dummy. I don't care what the hell they want me to be. You know, that was all cool until I got hurt on practice squad and I hurt my shoulder really bad. You know, so that second year I was freaking miserable. So miserable on the practice squad. And then the way Herm Edwards had it set up, in the home games, we wasn't on the sideline like it is now. We was up in the stands like regular fans and on home games. And then we couldn't travel with the team on away games, you know. So unless you was on the active roster. So you felt like, even though you was a part of a team, you felt like you really wasn't a part of the team.
Kind of estranged, right?
Yeah. And I was so miserable, fellas. Like I literally thought about quitting football for the first time in my life. I was praying. I remember being I had this little studio apartment on Hempstead Turnpike up in Hofstra University, right down the street from Hofstra, where the Jets used to be at. And I remember being in there on the floor, praying on my bed, like, God, please tell me, like, if this is what I'm supposed to do, just give me a sign. I just need a sign. Just give me something. And then literally that following week, I got the phone call from my agent about Tampa. You know, asked me, do I want to be a Buck? And we sucked that year in New York. The first year we went to the playoffs, lost to Oakland in the first round. I played in that game, started in that game on special teams. And then that second season, I didn't get a chance to play at all. I didn't get activated at all. I was on the practice squad all year. And then Tampa Bay called me. When another team call you to sign you off the practice squad, they're going to activate you right away.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going into Tampa to play right now.
Right.
So I was going to be playing that next week. I was like, hell yeah, I can't wait to get out of here. Plus, it was cold as hell in New York. And Tampa is hot. It's hot and beautiful and sunny with palm trees.
Yeah, you're
Tampa.
from Georgia, so you want that heat, I'm sure.
Yeah.
My favorite tree is the palm tree. So I was like, man, I'm out.
There you go.
And then he called me back. He was like, hey, they want to know if the Jets was to try to match the offer, would you stay in New York? I'm like, no, no, like, let's go. So he said, pack your bag, get to the airport. I'm gonna send you a flight information on your way. I was like, cool. I jumped in the car, packed everything I could, threw in the suitcase, jumped on the car, drove to the airport, left my truck at the airport, jumped on the plane. I was on my way to Tampa. When I got to Tampa, before the Jets knew I was signing with Tampa, I was in Tampa already. Wow. It was on my day off. It was like a Tuesday on my day off. I got down there, and right away I got in Nate Webster. I don't know if you remember him, Nate Webster, the linebacker that played in Cincy. He played in Tampa. He was on that team as well. But Tampa was balling that year. We went to the freaking Super Bowl that year. I get there week 10. I was supposed to start. Nate Webster was hurt. That's why they brought me in. The special teams coordinator in Tampa was Rich Bisacci, who's the interim head coach in Las Vegas when Gruden got fired. Yeah. Right. So Rich was my guy. He actually recruited me at Clemson when I was coming out of high school here in Atlanta. So our relationship kind of went way back then. He remembered me from then. So he brought me down there. He was a special teams coordinator, and Nate Webster miraculously got better. So I never got a chance to actually hit the field. So we go all the way to the freaking Super Bowl that year, run through everybody in the playoffs, go to the Super Bowl, win the freaking Super Bowl, blow out Oakland, played against my idol, Jerry Rice, right? So I'm like, God, thank you. God don't show me all the signs I need to know. Yeah. I know I'm in the right place now. I know I'm doing the thing I'm supposed to be doing. We win the Super Bowl, and then I did such a good job that the Bucks didn't send me to Germany. They kept me. They said, we're not sending you to Germany. We want you to come back next year, et cetera. They re-signed me to another 1-year deal. And then I came back to Tampa the following offseason, and my auntie Levette passed away, who's like my mom. I got her tattoo like right here on my forearm. That's her right there. So when she passed away, she passed away in training camp. So I had to come home to her funeral. I went back, and I just mentally wasn't in the right place. I still ended up making the team in Tampa. I started the first 2 or 3 games on special teams, but mentally I wasn't in it. I ended up getting cut. We started having a bunch of guys go down. Joe Jerry Vicious got hurt. They kicked Keyshawn off the team that year. If I don't know if y'all remember him getting banned from the complex. Yeah. So all that stuff kind of started to go down, and they needed receivers. So they cut me. I was a bubble guy. They cut me, told me not to leave to go to Atlanta because they may be signing me back in another week or two, and then they never signed me back. I ended up moving back to Atlanta. The end of that season came. I basically missed like the next 7, 8, 9, 10 games, however games it was. I missed all those games. The end of the season came, and then I asked my agent would he sign me up for NFL or Europe. He signed me up for Germany. I got drafted as an undrafted guy going over to Germany with the Ryan Fire in Dusseldorf, Germany. I went over there and balled out, revitalized, rejuvenated, just refocused. Like I was sat at home on my couch watching guys play that I knew I was better than. And I told God, just give me one more chance. Just let me get my foot in the door. I was mad at myself because I didn't give it everything I should have given it. I got distracted by the likes, the glam, all that type of stuff. And I just didn't pour everything I had into the league, and I regretted it. I literally regretted it. And I think that's one of the things that we have as people have to ask ourselves all the time, man. Like, are you giving this thing 110% of yourself? 100% of you. Are you putting everything you can put into it? Are you giving anything else your time, anything else your focus, anything else your undivided attention? And I was doing that. I was doing other things. I had relationships outside of football. I was out with my teammates. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. I don't gamble. So I wasn't partying like that. If I was at a party, most of the time I was a designated driver. So I was the good guy, but I still was doing stuff that was, I could have took that time and been in my playbook. I could have took that time and been studying the plays. I didn't know the offense as well as I should have known it, the West Coast offense that I was doing in Tampa, but I knew the special teams front and back because that's how they brainwash you. So mentally I had talked myself into being a special teams guy instead of remembering what got me to the NFL in the first place, which was me being a freaking phenomenal receiver and that could catch and run and, make plays after I catch the ball, break tackles. And that's what got me there. So I had forgotten that. When I sat at home on my mom's couch for those 10, 12 weeks, I remembered what got me there. And I allowed these people to brainwash me just to make the team. And they kept me around for a couple of years, but I was never solidified. I was always the bubble guy. You know, every time somebody needed to get cut, they would cut me and bring me back and cut me and bring me back. And I was like, if I get another shot, I'm not going to do that no more. I'm just going to pour everything I got into the NFL. And when I got picked up in Germany, I went over there and just had a freaking blast. I was flexed out wide out. I was in the slide. I was in the wing. I was at tight end. I was at fullback. I was special teams captain, led the team in tackles that year.
Wow.
Like, I killed it. I had my first commercial over there. I had my first billboard over there, my first autograph signings over there in Germany.
That's awesome.
And I was an undrafted guy. I wasn't a guy that was allocated, right? I wasn't allocated by a team. I was a free agent going over there, being drafted in the draft over there. And I remember the head coach, before we left, they said they weren't going to take any guys that wasn't allocated that year. He said he wasn't. The head coach, Pete Kahartnicek, said, I'm not going over there without Daniel Wilcox. And we had another guy that played defensive. I think his name was Randy something. And he was like, I'm not going over without those two guys. Now, mind you, James Harrison was on that same team with me. James Harrison.
Oh, yeah.
Pittsburgh Steelers, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know, so we go over there. We ball out. James get hurt like week 4, week 5, end up going back home, flying back home. He hurt his knee or something. So, and he was with the Ravens at the time, allocated by the Ravens over there. And when I get back to the States, I signed with Baltimore. Fresh off 3 training camp games, a 10-game season. I just played 13 games in NFL Europe. So 13 games over there. I get back in June, sign with Baltimore a week later.
Wow.
Report to training camp in July. I think we had 5 preseason games that year, and then we played a 16-game season and went to the playoffs. So I played from January to January that following, almost January to January that whole year. I played a whole year of football. But when I came into training camp, I was hot. Like I had been running routes all season, all practicing, everybody else was still trying to get into that mode, right? So when I got
football
there,
shape,
all I had to do was learn the playbook. I was already in football shape. So when I got there, I had that juice. I was making play after play after play after play after play. The first week in training camp, Ray Lewis came up to me and said, "Hey man, you number 44?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Man, I like your game. Keep doing what you're doing."
Nice.
I had just came from Tampa where Warren Sapp was the guy, and he didn't even want to shake my hand the first day I got there. So I came from that negative energy to Ray Lewis walking up to me saying, "Man, I like your game.
Oh man,
keep doing what you're doing." And that was all I needed. Going against Ed Reed every day, going against Terrell Suggs every day. Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
And before you know it, man, Gruden was like, "Where the hell you been? What rock you been underneath the last 3-4 years?" And I was like, "Man, I've been shooting myself in the feet." He actually asked me. He was like, because I hated John Gruden with a passion when I left Tampa. Like I hated that man. Like I couldn't stand him. I was blaming everything on John Gruden at first. And then that time I set out, I started to kind of realize, like, you know what? I didn't give him my all. Like it wasn't all Gruden. It was a lot of me in that. He had a right to be an asshole to me or mistreat me or talk to me the way he was talking to me because maybe he saw something in me that I didn't see in me. And he was doing what he was doing because he was realizing that I wasn't giving everything that I don't know if he believed in. I still think he's an asshole, but he realized I wasn't giving him my all. You feel me, Glenn?
You had more. You had more. Yeah,
I think he realized, he's like, bro, like, because he said some dumb stuff to me about Appalachian State. You went to freaking Appalachian State, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
What the hell that's supposed to mean? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, and it's just, he rubbed me the wrong way a lot, man. And and I left out of Tampa, happy to be out of Tampa because of him, but really upset at myself because I met some phenomenal players. Corey Ivy was on that team with me too. Me and CI go way back to 2002. So, I mean, it was such a phenomenal experience for me in Tampa, but Gruden just kind of ruined it for me. And then I got home, I had to really do some soul searching and check myself. And then when I came back into the league, man, I never said no to anything. So that's why I was the most active guy in the community in Baltimore. That's why I was doing all the billboards in Baltimore, all the TV shows in Baltimore, the radio shows. That's why all the media respect me so much because I respected them so much. I never said no to anything in Baltimore. And that was part of the reason was because I got cut in Tampa and I sat at home for those 12, 13 weeks, telling myself I didn't squeeze everything out of the NFL the way I should have. And I literally allowed myself to go through 3 years in the league. And I come out of the whole thing with a Harley Davidson F-150 and some nice clothes. I wasn't happy with myself.
Right, man. That's so powerful, right? Like not too many people are given a second opportunity, but people that don't always take advantage of it either. I think that's pretty cool. You had the bravery to kind of look yourself in the mirror. But this is my follow-up question for you. Obviously, you get to Baltimore. You talked about him earlier. You're playing with a guy, Todd Heap, in your tight end room. And I feel like I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like to this day, Todd is still a little underappreciated. Like to me, Todd Heap was not everyone,
sure.
but I still feel like people
Todd was
maybe
that
it's
dude.
yeah, like I feel like the younger community of Ravens fans don't really understand.
Nobody ever
how
picks him
good
as the best
Todd
of when we have our best tight end of all time discussion. It for some reason
You're
Todd
talking
Heap
about for the
never
Ravens, right? You're
Yeah,
talking about
yeah. It's always Shannon. Gets brought up a lot. I hear Dennis Pitta a lot. Mark Andrews.
Well, you know what that's about, though, right?
Is it because the
What's that?
quarterback?
No, well, I mean, it had a lot to do with Kyle Bowler, the Kyle Bowler effect.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, you have to understand like the dynamics of who you're talking about. Like Todd is a Mormon, right? He's super quiet. He's super family oriented. He's to himself. He didn't do a lot of new stuff. If he did, he was just the cool kind of quiet kid in the background.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't a loudmouth. He wasn't Shannon Sharp that has so much charisma and personality that oozes out on the camera screen, right? So he wasn't that guy. So it's easy to say Shannon name quick. Dennis Pitta, only because of the young guys know him, they don't really realize how good Todd Heap really was.
Yeah. So what made him so good? Like, because I feel like we see him, but I would love to know from you what it was when you experienced working around Todd Heap. What was it that set him apart from other tight ends?
To me, he just had he had the it factor. He had that same thing that when you watch, like I remember Wade Harmon put together a cut up tape for tight ends. It was Shannon Sharp, it was Tony Gonzalez, it was two more guys, Antonio Gates, and I think it might have been Jeremy Shockey or somebody like I can't remember what it was, but he put it together and gave it to me and Heap. And when I watched the tape, I'm like, bro, like how did they get open? Like it's like, how do you not cover Tony Gonzalez? He just runs up the field butt naked, wide open. Nobody, he not even touched. When I get out there, they trying to bump me, they shoving me, they I'm running all over the place. And then when you'll watch Todd Heap, he had that same thing. It was this melodic, like almost violin type factory where they lull you to sleep. It's like, and Todd was so mechanical, like he was so like straight up in line. Like if you had drew a picture of how somebody's supposed to look when they run, it was Todd Heap. High knees, right upright, arms perfect, ear to hip with his hands. It was perfect technique and form. And he had this one move that was unstoppable. He would get to the top of the route and then he would put his foot in the ground and he would stick and then turn his head, plant, and then just go right back out. But it was so mechanical. I'm like, how the heck this worked? Like I had so much wiggle. I'd be up at I'm like, I'm breaking out. I'm like OBJ out there at tight end, And then you watch Todd and he just be thank you.
Wide open.
It'd be wild. It'd be so wide open, man. But he had very deceptive speed. He was a legit 6'5" guy with like a wingspan of probably like a 6'7" guy, right? And he had big, huge hands, and he never dropped any balls thrown to him. I mean, it's very hard to find a catch that he dropped. And that's what made him special. Like that's what he made Kyle Bowler career while he was in Baltimore.
Is it just me, or did Glenn and I were talking about this last time? Did Todd Heap get an overwhelming amount of catches where he just got destroyed right after
like
the every time he got smashed right to the kneecaps? He was always flipping over someone.
Yeah, he did. It was towards the end of our career, they was kind of switching the rules where you couldn't go helmet to helmet. So they started trying to switch that towards the end of our career. We was like the first wave of that. And so he did get a lot of low shots to the knees because they was telling you that you couldn't hit him in the head anymore. So they was coming in hitting below the waist a lot, so he did get a lot of shots like that. But he always did this weird thing where he would jump right before you hit him. And that's why you saw him flip a lot.
Yeah.
You see a lot of times you'll see Todd flip when he gets hit, man. But he just had a really steady game. Like his game was really, really solid. He was a big, strong kid. You couldn't run up on him and try to manhandle him. He was too strong and physical for that. You couldn't put DBs on him because he was out jumping them or going. He was too tall and too long. The reach was bigger than theirs, and you couldn't do that. So you had to put somebody on it that could try to physical him up that could actually run. But it was really he was a mismatch for everybody on the field. That's why.
And you guys are a great pairing too.
Yeah, I thought we were.
Yeah,
imagine you two nowadays. Imagine you two coming in the league right now as a tandem. Oh my!
We'd be like this every day.
It would be unbelievable. But I want to. You touched on a little bit your respect for Steve Bisciotti, and I want to know from a former player because we constantly hear a faction of the fans that is critical for
and local media.
And local media, which they drive me crazy. But they're very critical of the combination of Harbaugh, Eric DaCosta, and Steve Bisciotti. And I mean,
Yeah.
unbelievable criticism. So someone who's been around the league and knows these guys pretty well, what's your
Right.
take on those three guys specifically?
Well, I knew Eric when he came in. I can't remember what his first role was, but he was a little guy on the totem pole when I first got there. So, I mean, I'm talking about back in 2004. But I've been knowing Eric for a long time. I did the internship in Baltimore like four years ago. And Eric he was turning over. I think Ozzie was almost ready to retire, but he hadn't retired yet, like 4 or 5 years ago. And Eric, it might have been the first year because Ozzie still sat on every single meeting that we had, and Eric was at the head of the table already. So I think it was Eric's first year as GM, the very first year when Ozzie first turned over the reins to him. And I was super proud of him. I remember I was being just super proud of Eric, just seeing his growth from where he started in Baltimore when he first got there 20 years prior to where he was now. And it just really amazing. And the thing I like most about Steve is that factor. Like, people don't want to leave the Ravens organization. Like, the people, like the ticket guy, Baker Copperman, is still there. You know, like all the young women that worked in the office, they're all older now with husbands and kids, and they've been working in Baltimore for 20 plus years. And Patty Holsh, who did all our checks. It was just all those people are still there. I walked back in the building, and I hadn't been there. I retired in 2009. I did this internship in I think I left Georgia State at like 2018 or something like that. So I think I did internship like 2019, right before COVID. So I'm basically there 10 years after I retired, and I'm looking at everybody that was there when I was playing. They still there. They just all moved up, and that says a lot about the owner. The person who owns the company,
100%.
because most people trying to get out of places, they're not trying to stay there. Like, most people are like, all right, I'm trying to figure out what my next move is. I don't want to stay here.
You got to go.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So all these people are elevating throughout the company, and some of these people still got the same role. They've just been there forever and they love it. They don't want to go anywhere else. The best job they've ever had, and they just feel great being a part of the Baltimore Ravens franchise. The president of the team when I was there was Dick Cass, and he's gone now. But just to see like the growth and the progression of that organization, and to see. I remember just being there with Steve and him just having personal conversations. I remember calling him Steve, and the other teammates looking at me like, man, you can't call the owner Steve. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it never bothered him. We're grown men, right? So it never really bothered him that way. I used to call him Mr. B all the time. And every now and then I might say Steve, because I felt like I knew him personally like that. And I didn't have that experience when I was in New York with Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets. I didn't have that experience at all in Tampa with the Glazers. At all. They were so hands off. It was so crazy. They only showed up on game day. It was like, all right, let's go get this money type thing with them. It was like, it felt weird. Right. Woody was at the complex almost every week watching practice in New York with the Jets. Steve Bisciotti was there every day in Baltimore watching practice. Him, Ozzie, just hanging out, chilling in the golf cart, watching practice, watching game film, watching practice film every single day. And, he asked real questions. And what do you think? He would literally ask me what I think. I'm an undrafted free agent guy who's been around the league. I've been here now for 4 or 5 years playing in Baltimore. I remember the year I got hurt when I hurt my foot. He asked me to come sit in his box up top. I was like, thank you, Jesus. It was we played Green Bay that game. It was so freaking cold. Man, he asked me to come sit in this box. I was like, Steve, you have no idea like how
What's it like in the owner's box? I gotta know. What's the
first
food
class,
situation?
First class. I mean, whatever you want. I mean, you can't say no to the owner, right? Whatever he wants. You got crab cakes, you got steak, you got whatever you want. Baltimore's finest, man. But he asked me to come sit in this box, and he didn't just ask me to come sit there and ignore me the whole time. He actually had a conversation with me the entire time. And I mean, he gave me some real life gold nuggets and real life like moments, things that I wish I had heard my rookie year. And it's like there's so much knowledge to be given throughout the NFL through so many different people, from the janitors, from the people that wash the freaking clothes, the equipment guys, all the way to the freaking owners. And I just wish there was a way to really pour it into all of us. Like they got the Rookie Symposium every year. I never got to go to the Rookie Symposium. I wasn't drafted. So I never even got a chance to hear all that stuff. I never had dreams of being in the Hall of Fame because I never seen it. I didn't see the Hall of Fame until all my teammates started getting inducted. The Warren Sapp's, the Jonathan Ogdens, the Ray Lewis's, the Ed Reeds, the Deion Sanders. Now I'm going to the Hall of Fame, and I'm like, man, I wish I had seen this. I would have loved to have shot for this. I never even knew that I never even knew about the Hall of Fame. I heard of Canton, I heard about the Hall of Fame, but I never really knew what it was. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
but it's just when you're around greatness, man, it pours out of those people. But Steve is such a first-class guy that it pours down to Eric DaCosta, Ozzy, all those guys, man. And they're such a phenomenal crew of guys, in Baltimore, in the front office. Now, I think this situation we're going through right now with Lamar.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah. That right now, that kind of gives you, that makes your hair stand up. And I was being honest. Like I said it on the show, and I was like, hey, man, I feel like we dropped the ball. The Ravens, we dropped the ball when it came to the Lamar situation. And I felt like almost in a sense, man, we took advantage of a kid. Lamar is only 25, 26 right now. So you mean 5 years ago, you're talking about a 19, 20, 21-year-old kid coming into this league, and he got a rookie contract that lasts 5 years. He's MVP at year 2 on that contract. You don't tell this kid that he need to renegotiate this contract. You just continue to milk him for pennies. Here he is 5 years later, he made $25 million. After taxes, that's about 17 mil, 17, 15, 16 mil after taxes, right? But you look at the other guys, Josh Allen's, and he made 88 mil, and this man made 25 mil. How does that even compare? Like that, it's not even fair, So it's like in a sense, with him not having an agent, he missed that person that say, hey, we're gonna sit out until they pay us right now.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this real quick. Sorry, because do you think that after year 3, which is generally when they start negotiating the contract with 2 years left on the deal, do you think that they approached him and said, hey, like let's and do you think, because I remember, and I'm sure you remember as well as other Ravens fans, of course, Joe Flacco bet on himself in that last year, won the Super Bowl, got paid handsomely, right? They offered him a contract. Joe felt like it was low. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the guaranteed money was doubled by the time from the original offer to post winning the Super Bowl. Yeah. Like it was something crazy.
Right. It was. I remember getting like $100 million or something after the Super Bowl. I remember it was stupid.
Yeah. So I guess really my question is, do you think that they came to Lamar and said, hey, let's get this done? And is there any way Lamar said, I don't like the offer, I'm going to keep riding this thing out?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a possibility. I mean, the thing is, me knowing the Ravens, me knowing Eric DaCosta, after I did the internship, Eric offered me a position. He actually offered me a job, and I actually accepted the job, and then COVID hit, and then that messed up everything. I never went back to the table with it about it. But, I love Eric. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a good person, true to heart, like really genuinely a good person. I think they allowed this opportunity to pass them by, and we've never had a unanimous MVP at QB ever.
Right.
Ever in the history of the franchise. So as far as I'm concerned, like the Joe Flacco situation is not even in the same category as this. This is year 2 of this kid's contract, life as a Raven, and he's a unanimous MVP, voted number 1 by all the players and coaches as top 100 players in the NFL. He's number 1 in the top 100, and that's your quarterback. The Ravens have always been known for defense. The last 4 or 5 years, people are coming to see the offense play for the first time. And people buy more Lamar jerseys than any other defensive player on the team right now. So it's like, to me, when you see something shift like that, such a dynamic shift like that, you have to pay attention to it. And this kid, by him not having an agent, his mom and him, going back and forth with these guys about this thing, I think there's no way you allow him not to get this done.
Yeah. Do you think he needs to pick? Do you think he would, if you were in his ear right now?
Yeah.
Right. Would you say, look, man, you just go grab yourself an agent, whatever vetting process you need to go through.
Interview everyone.
So I agree with Lamar 100% by never getting an agent in the first place. And I tell a lot of the young guys I mentor, you really don't need an agent, because I want them to know that you don't need an agent in order to be represented through the NFL. There's a lot of snakes out here trying to get into our pockets and trying to get into our heads and trying to get power of attorneys of our accounts. And even T.O. played all those years, and he retires, and this guy take all his freaking money. Right. A lot of times those financial guys are given to you by your agents, so I always want these guys to know that you don't have to pay your agent 3% agent. And the thing that Lamar messed up is, when you don't have an agent, to me, you should have an entertainment lawyer represent you on contract day. That way, all the legal jargon, all the stuff that's worked out, all the stuff get worked out. And then you have somebody that knows this business. Like Dick Cass, the GM, the president of the Ravens, he used to be a lawyer, like a high-powered lawyer that was a business attorney. He knew about all these contracts. He knew them inside and out. He knew how to get these things done, structured, and made them done right. Plus, Ozzie have done this stuff a million times. Eric DeCosta sitting on these meetings for at least 10 years with all these contracts. So he has a really good gist how this stuff's supposed to go. If he's not 100% certain, I'm pretty close to Eric is so freaking sharp that he know 100% how every contract should look and be broken down, all that stuff as well. So these guys are not dumb. They do this all the time. Lamar, first time ever negotiating a contract, bring somebody in that's smart enough, and you don't have to pay that guy 3% or nothing. You just pay him his retainer or his fee. You know, you might drop him 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever it was just for him to negotiate your contract, and you're done with him. The problem is with agents, you're giving the guy 3% of something that he didn't even have to work his ass off to get. You know, so if Lamar goes sign for 130 million, the agent get 3% of 130 mil. Well, Lamar ain't gonna even see 130. He only gonna see half of that. You know, so when he only gets to see half of that money, the agent still get 3% of the overall amount. And that's a lot of money to pay somebody that hadn't put in that work. You know, just like you look at a girl and you try to date with a girl and girl try to come in late in your life and you've already a millionaire. You're like, hey, man, you weren't with me when I was shooting in the gym. You know, I put all this work in by myself. You didn't help me lift these weights. You didn't take no hits. You didn't do none of that stuff. So it's hard to go with a girl, a female, even after that point. You know, so now you got to hire an agent who's supposed to be the first hire in your company as a man, as a pro athlete, and you got to go out and hire somebody that you don't know and you don't trust and you don't know 100%. Even though they have to be certified through the NFL, they don't mean they're not a snake. That just means they paid the money to get certified through the NFL. You know, everybody's gonna pay that money to get certified because they know you can't even be in those front offices without it. You know, so it's hard, man. It's such a hard decision,
what do you
especially somebody like Lamar.
What do you think the ultimately? What do you think? Yeah.
And get an agent.
What do you think?
So you don't think that Eric gave that? Like, you don't think the Ravens were all the reports that we're hearing, and again, these are reports, is that it seemed like the offer was in line with every other contract outside of that one outlier in Deshaun Watson getting that 230 from Cleveland. So do you think that the Ravens came with an offer that was fair amongst all those others? Like,
I don't know. I know the Ravens is business first. And that's what people have to realize, the fans have to realize as well. Like, at the end of the day, this is a business, you know, and it's work for us. Like, I used to tell people I was going to work. They'd be like, where you work at? And I was like, I play for the Ravens. They was like, that ain't no job. I was like, what are you talking about? It's a full-time job, dog. You go to work from 9 to 5. Yeah, you go to work from 9 to 5 every day. I get up every morning at 5. I'm at work at 6, and I don't leave to get home till like 6, 7 o'clock at night. My hours and days are way longer than yours. I only get one day off a week. It's on Tuesday. Nothing's popping on a Tuesday. You know, I practice on Sunday, practice and travel on Saturdays, and I play on Sundays. You know what I'm saying? Even if I'm at home, I got to stay in the team hotel Saturday night. I can't even stay in my own bed. You know, so it's like you're having these conversations with people, but they don't even realize that this is a job. You know, because it's a game that you fall in love with and you love from 5 years old on, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, it's not a job, but it's a business. Yeah. Lamar was 100% loyal to the Baltimore Ravens. When it came down time to pay him, I think the Ravens were going to pay him. I think they was going to give him his guarantee. All I've heard is the 133 guarantee. That's all I've heard. No, with the additional of being able to get like about 175 with incentives or something like that, right? Yeah, that's all I've heard. You know, so I don't know how true that is because I'm not in that room. You guys are not in that room. Nobody knows what's what. If he had an agent, we would probably know.
We'd all know, wouldn't we?
Because his agent would put it out there and represent him extremely well. But since he don't have that, he's not doing those things. Right. He's not as versed with those things. And when people say there's no market for this kid, there's a market for Lamar.
What do you think, though? There's no way Bisciotti lets him walk out the door, though, right? I mean, don't you think this gets done?
How can they let him leave? Yeah, how can they do it? I see the autograph line. The line is all at Lamar. They don't care if Andrews,
nobody
else, Humphrey, line them all up on the other side. There ain't no kids over there. They're all with Lamar.
That's the thing that bothers me the most, right? Because if they had gave him 133 after the second year, we wouldn't be having this conversation. He would have took that 133 guaranteed for the next 3 years. He'd have walked off. But they didn't do that. They let him play out that whole rookie year. Now he's asking for that 133 plus that other 70 mil that he probably didn't get, that Jones got and all those other guys got that he didn't get while he was playing out that rookie deal. So people are only looking at it like he's being greedy because he's asking for the 133 or more than 133. But what about the years where he didn't get the other money? You know, he got like 3 years where he didn't get the rest of the money that the rest of the quarterbacks that was playing at a high level got. And he's still his record is better than all those guys. You know, yeah, he didn't play last year. Yeah, he didn't play that all the whole year, the year before, you know, because of injuries. But have y'all not forgot what happened 2 years ago when there was 45 guys on the Baltimore Ravens team on IR, and this man was out there by himself with no help, no running backs, you know, only one tight end, you know, no offensive line, all the DBs was hurt. Everybody was, and he had to carry the whole team. He's running for his life.
We were 8-1 at one point, weren't we?
Yeah, it was 8-1, like, and then everybody gets hurt, and then he's out there still winning games by himself almost. He carried the whole team until he got a sprained ankle, not a broken leg, not a torn hamstring. He didn't rip anything off the ball. He got a freaking sprained ankle, a high ankle sprain, and people acting like, oh, he's injury prone. Man, he had a sprained ankle. You get the sprained ankle walking to the store right now. You know, you walk outside your house, step on the crack the wrong way, and you twist your ankle. That's
you asked Glenn about a sprained ankle.
Hey, let me tell you, I got weak ankles. Hey, Kevin Durant rolled his ankle in the layup line. I mean, you know, it's gonna happen.
Now, Daniel, though, you got to look at your crystal ball and give us ultimately, what do you think? You think?
Yeah, what happens? Is he gonna be gone? Please tell me no.
I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I thought he was gone once they gave him the tender offer. When they gave him the low tender offer, I came on live and I was like, he's gone. Like.
But OBJ's here, dude.
We just lost our quarterback. See, with them signing OBJ, that gave me hope that Lamar had to be in his ear because OBJ, he's too old of a guy. He know how this league works. Yeah. If he ain't got a quarterback, I don't care how good you are. You're going to be just as worse as anybody else out there on the field. The quarterback is the most important position on the field if you're a receiving guy, if you're a receiver, period. You know, so OBJ wouldn't have taken this job, I don't think, unless he knew 100% that Lamar was coming to.
At least the 1 year, like at least on this deal.
At least this year.
He's going to play out the low tender and let's roll. You know what I mean? But I just can't see it happening.
What's Steve and Lamar? I mean, you know Steve pretty well. What do those conversations look like in your opinion? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Do you think that they're having conversations? You think Steve's chatting with Lamar, or does he leave that to Eric and he's kind of more hands off in those scenarios?
I think Steve is going. He always business first. I remember him having a conversation with me one time, and Steve told me, if you give me anything that I do and let me go one-on-one with somebody else, I'm gonna kill him. Like, that's how hard he goes at whatever it is that he does. And he was like, I remember him because we having this conversation because we were sitting down talking about finances, and we was talking about investments and stuff like that. And he was like, man, all these guys are gonna come to y'all trying to give y'all these get rich quick schemes. He was like, your biggest investment is you, Wilcox. Invest in you. Invest in your body, invest in your training, invest in studying, invest in your playbook. Like, if you do that, there's nothing else out here that's going to give you the return on your investment the way that you will. You know, like, you can go out here and give somebody $1 million of your money today, and they're going to give you back 1.5 in a year. If you go and you work your butt off and you keep your money in your bank account and you work your butt off this year and this off season and you put your time and effort into this game, next year you could quadruple that. You know, you come back and making 1 mil to next year making 10 that quick. It's nothing else that can give you that return on that investment. That's why he was having that conversation with me. Wow. He's a businessman. He's about his business. He's about what makes sense for the franchise. You know, he bought this franchise. He owns it almost 100% ownership of this franchise. He loves this franchise to death. He's been around this franchise since he was a little kid, being a ball boy on the sideline, grew up loving the Baltimore Ravens, and told himself when he was a kid, one day I'm going to own this team. And he owns it now. Okay, so he's not the type of guy that's going to go out and make foolish mistakes and foolish deals. I think they dropped the ball when they didn't pay Lamar back then. At this point in time now, that's the only thing Steve Bisciotti is thinking about. He's thinking about what makes sense moving forward. He will not be made a fool of or mockery of in this league, and he's going to do what's best for the Baltimore Ravens franchise. And I think that's good business on his part.
Yeah, it's a fine line. Don C is one of our most loyal guys. Daniel, yeah, man, he's great. He says, for Daniel, what was harder for him at the pro level, passing concepts or the protection and blocking concepts? Daniel, always great to see you. Come back with James and Glenn and DK. They are the best in the business. I like it. So what's your take? Was it more difficult picking up the passing concepts or the protection and blocking?
So the passing concepts are pretty much consistent, you know, pretty much from park ball all the way through. Like, you have your basic route trees where you're going to run certain routes, and then they got wrinkles off all those routes. So the combinations or the concepts, the passing concepts, really not that hard. The blocking schemes for me was extremely hard. When I say extremely hard, like I'm telling you this because I had to learn everything 3 different ways. from the receiver standpoint, from the tight end standpoint, and from the running back standpoint. So every single play, I had to know everybody's position. So I had to know what everybody was doing because I could be in any of those spots at any given moment. So picking up the protections, the hot reads, and understanding when I was hot, and it was such a split-second decision sometimes. Like I literally line up on the line, and then Palomalu was 20 yards off the ball before the ball snaps. 2 seconds later, down. Said hut, hut. By the time he says hut, hut, he's already running past me, and I'm the hot guy. And I would just look down for a split second, and I look up, and this man is running past me. And it's that crazy. You don't have enough time. And I'm trying to, when I come up to the line of scrimmage, I got to scan everything. So I got to look at everything. I got to find out where the safeties are, where the corners are. I got to read what coverage I think they're in right now. They're in cover 4, they're in cover 2, they're in cover 3, 1, 0, 5, whatever it may be, 6. I got to read those coverages, and it changes every time on the snap of the ball. That's why you see a lot of dummy counts and, false counts where they say, down, to that, blue 80, blue 80. They do that down, to that, to get them to show whatever coverage they're going to have right now. And then whatever they show me, my protection may be different off that. But as soon as we check, they check too. So now we found out what they're doing. We found out what coverage they was in. They might have been in cover 3, and now we check, and then they come back and they're in cover 1 as soon as we snap the ball. Now they locked up on the receivers outside and got one safety high in the middle of the field, and everybody locked up underneath. And now everything changes for me. Instead of me sitting back in the block, now I got to do a late leak out onto a route, and then hopefully I can get the dump off, from Kyle Bowler, who never threw it to me for some reason.
Because he couldn't hit the dump off.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Man, he fall out of a boat, wouldn't hit the damn water. He's a whiz, dude.
He fell out the boat, he wouldn't even hit the water.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah,
That
come
was
on,
tough,
man.
James. That was
Hey,
tough.
look, man, I got a lot of bad childhood memories thanks to that guy.
We're emotionally attached to this team.
Well, imagine the trauma that we have as players. Okay?
Oh my God.
That's all I can tell you. Imagine the trauma that we
You know
have.
what it makes me think of? Anybody seen Longest Yard? I forgot he's
Yeah.
the comedian dude, and he's the Hispanic guy, and he wants to play quarterback.
Yeah, Brucey.
Yeah, he's like, I can do it. And he goes, ha, 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 and he throws it like 1,000 yards the other way.
He's like, that's why you're not the quarterback. Sit down and shut up.
Crazy,
Sit down
man.
and shit. That's right.
Absolutely crazy.
That was a
Yeah,
brutal one.
It was.
Yeah,
man.
those were some time. Well, before I let you go, I gotta get your take on this because we oftentimes have the discussions on here. I just seen it on Twitter. Now I don't, I'm sure you're still friends with some of these guys, so I don't want to, have you making any enemies. But in your opinion, you practice with the guys, you saw them up close and personal. Who is your GOAT Raven that you played with during your time? Like, who is your?
Can't say you.
Yeah, who's the GOAT? Because I know you played with all the legends on defense. I know that.
Yeah, it's so hard, man. Because you had them at every level on defense, man. Dang, that's tough.
Because people forget how good Sizzle is. I think they always talk about Ray and Ed, but Sizz gets lost.
Yeah, I mean, I had to see Sizz every day, and I hated going against Sizz because he only had one motor that was 100 miles per hour. He had one gear. That one gear was always lit.
Is it just me, or was he one of the few people in the NFL that his height and weight was wrong, like under? I swear, I saw him in real life. I'm like, he is bigger than what they say. Like usually it's the other way around.
Yeah, they always make it bigger. Yeah.
No, he's way bigger than that.
He was really big lower body, but wasn't as big upper body, but had long arms and kind of had big arms like a wrestler. But upper body, he didn't carry a lot of weight. His chest was smaller, his core was smaller, but he had a huge butt, big thighs, all that type of stuff. But he was definitely bottom heavy and freakishly strong, man. If I had to say the number one Raven that I probably enjoyed playing with and watching the most, it hands down, it has to be 20. Ed.
Really? Yeah.
Ray was such a phenomenal talent. I remember my rookie year with the Jets, and I remember I told you I had to sit up in the stands when we had home games. We played Baltimore, and Ray made like the first 15 tackles of the game, like sideline to sideline. I thought that was such a phenomenal feat. I had never seen that before.
Yeah, didn't draw Suggs. He's still making tackles today.
I know, right? But Ed, 52
man, with the tackle.
Yeah, Ed, man, Ed, hands down, man. Like today, people ask me all the time who's the best player I ever played against. I feel like it was Ed Reed, and we used to sit back on the sideline, and this how you know when somebody's really special. Anytime we got into a crunch situation, we knew our defense was going to bail us out at the end of the game. We always knew they was going to bail us out. We didn't know who was going to make a play. We knew it was going to be Chris McAllister, Samari Rowe, Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs, Haloti Nada, Kelly Gregg. We knew somebody was gonna make a play. Bart Scott. We knew somebody was gonna make it. And I used to be like, "Come on, Ed. Come on, Ed. Like I know it. Please let him throw that head." You know what I'm saying? Like,
weren't there a moment you could just feel it in your bones?
Yeah,
you knew it was coming.
You knew it was coming, and
it's been like 50 dropbacks, and you're like, well,
he had one season that was so magical, James. Like it was like every time they threw it deep.
Didn't he have 9 interceptions in 7 games or something insane like that?
Yeah, then he had the longest return for a touchdown, like 105. Then turned around and had a 109 that same year. Like
broke his own record.
Yeah, it was freaking unbelievable. Like, and it was like some of the dumbest, stupidest, craziest returns you've ever seen.
Crazy.
Like it's no way he was supposed to break that tackle. No way he's supposed to jump that back.
For 180 yards. If you look at the side to side, like there's so many.
Oh yeah, his return yards total for his career is insane. It's like yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate you settling the at least from your opinion.
It's Ed for me.
But you can't go wrong with any of them, of course.
And let me follow up with this one. Go ahead.
Ed would go on defense on punt return and block a punt.
Yeah.
Scoop it, score. Then he would go on punt return a punt, score. He would go to DB. You throw it deep, he pick it off, return it for a touchdown. He hurt you in almost every phase of the game. And he would do the same thing on field goal.
Strip your quarterback too, right?
Yeah, his script sack, all that stuff. And then he would get it and pitch it back and not be selfish. It's like he was such an unselfish player and just such a dynamic player and so freaking fun to watch. It was so you sit on the sideline like a fan sometimes, like, did that just happen? Like sometimes you would see Ed score when I played in Baltimore. You would see Ed score, and all of a sudden you'll see 83 run out on the field. It's like, what the hell am I doing down there? I'm like the first one down there, like hugging. I'm on offense, sitting on the bench watching it, and by the time he got to the end zone, I'm in the end zone hugging him, like, "Hey, great job!" Like, it was such a phenomenal thing to see, man, on a consistent basis. It was so.
Well, I don't think there's too many guys. There's too many guys that can make the NFL look like backyard football. Like he was that superior.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? He literally make it look like you're just
man amongst boys.
It was just absolutely crazy. One other question I got to ask. Now, this guy was a Raven. He had a short tenure here, but I think it was relatively impactful, and he kind of bailed us out of some bad quarterback years. And I know you got to play with Steve McNair.
Breaks my heart. Yep.
Yeah, man. God rest his soul. Yeah. But I'm curious to know, like, obviously Ravens and Titans back in the day had some animosity.
Oh, yeah.
And Steve was a part of that. Mm-hmm. When he came over, like, what sort of shift was that? Did he immediately take the reins on offense? Like, he's obviously a leader, by nature, playing quarterback. But what was that like, him coming over and having the opportunity to play with him? Because once again, short tenure guy here, kind of in his career. But that's awesome to hear.
Phenomenal. Like, best quarterback I ever played with. I played with a ton of quarterbacks, even in the NFL, man, from Vinny Testaverde, Chad Pennington to Brad Johnson, Sean King, and Joe Hamilton down in Tampa. Then getting to Baltimore and had Cordell and Kyle and Troy Smith and Steve McNair and Flacco and all those guys, man. But best quarterback I ever played with in my life, in my entire life, even high school and college, collegiate, hands down was Steve McNair. Wow. Had the biggest, strongest, powerfulest arm I think I've ever experienced, but had such a gentle touch on it. Charismatic as all outdoors. As soon as he got to here, he started doing stuff immediately in the community. Went to a bunch of his food drives and stuff he did, giving away turkeys at Thanksgiving, giving toys to kids, at Christmas time. He made a really impact on the community of Baltimore as soon as he got here. Me being the guy that was super involved in the community here, that was important for me. But Steve, man, just first class guy, smile that will melt your heart as soon as you see him. Just exciting guy to be around, man. He's just super fun, great character, just good charisma, just super nice, give you the shirt off his back if you wanted it, if you needed it. He just first class type of guy, man. That first year he came in here, I always think when you transfer from one team to another, you kind of get a fresh start and you get a chance to come in fresh with no judgment. And I think that's what it was. He had got to a point in Tennessee where he had got judged so much from going to the Super Bowl early and losing it and never getting back there and people started to kind of judge him. Kind of had that Donovan McNabb type vibe to him in Tennessee. And then he gets here and he gets a fresh start. It's like he got drafted all over again. I remember him saying that. I remember he said, well, I feel like I got drafted all over again, Wilcox, you know. And that's how it is when you come to a place like Baltimore, man. It makes you feel so welcome and feel so good. And that's why I said OBJ is going to do really well. I feel like he's going to do well here. If he could just stay healthy, I think he'll do really well. But, you know, Steve was by far the most dynamic quarterback I ever played with. He was the first quarterback that would scramble and kind of give that little shuffle pass, that Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers type little shuffle pass that I played with. And it just made my life freaking just phenomenal, man. I felt good. I had a really good year his first year here at QB, man. And the next year, unfortunately, he was hurt the whole next year he played, and he wasn't the same after the first year.
I appreciate that.
He played through a lot of injuries over his career. I think it's been pretty well documented. So certainly rest in peace to Steve McNair. But man, I appreciate you joining us, man. This has been all this time you've given us. I appreciate it so much.
Man. This is awesome.
Yeah,
man, I set this time aside, man. As soon as I saw it was 410 Sports Talk, I was like, man, let's do this, baby.
Oh man. So can we make sure that we do this again and kind of do it more often? Perfect, awesome.
Yeah,
this
we'll
was
love
blast.
If it's cool with you, we'll put you on the spot right now. I have a tendency of doing this.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, here he goes. Oh yeah, get ready because he does it to me too. So yeah.
I just make up new segments in the middle of the show all the time.
I had no idea we're doing this, but okay.
So we're gonna do like our draft. We'll try and do like a draft party, and so a lot of times after the pick, we'll have people come on talk about the pick and stuff like that. I'm not sure if you'll do an instant reaction as well, but if there's a time we can line up after the pick, I don't know how late you're going in the night, or if you want to hop on beforehand, but maybe sometime in that window on draft night we can line something up.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me I'm gonna go ahead and text you guys my phone number so you guys got it. I'm gonna send it to HK DK. I'm sorry, I'm gonna send it to DK.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And I think he hit me on Twitter, right?
Instagram, I think.
Instagram, yeah. So
one of them.
I'm gonna go ahead and send my phone number in, but you guys will have it personally. Just shoot me a text and then we'll link up. We'll make it happen.
Cool. No, that's perfect. We appreciate that, man. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much for coming out. Make sure you guys check out Daniel Wilcox, of course. Obviously on the Believe podcast. Let everyone know where they can catch you, where they can get all your stuff, what all your social media handles are. Let them know.
Well, this is a TV show right now, Amazon Prime. It's called Life After. One of my teammates that played with me in Tampa, Thomas Jones, he's the producer on it, and he went through and just got a bunch of NFL guys that are retired and just kind of did life after football. And people are always wondering what we're doing and what we're up to. So if you get a chance, go to Amazon Prime, go type in Life After, and then watch episode 7. I'm on episode 7.
Nice.
You can check that out. And then on IG, I am Daniel.Wilcox, and then on Twitter, I am Coach Wilcox on Twitter. And I mean, check us out, man. I mean, we're doing some great things out here in the community and trying to do things better. I'm getting my foundation up and running again. So I'll be in touch with you guys about some of that stuff as well. So we can kind of pub some of that. I will be back in the city of Baltimore doing some stuff with my foundation again. And I'll be up in Ocean City June 1st for the Beach Bash again this year. I went last summer and they invited me back again. And I think J.O. has a golf tournament too. Jonathan Ogden has a golf tournament like June 5th. I'll be up for that as well.
Oh, you swing them a little bit?
No, I suck. I'll be the guy driving the golf cart and conducting, traffic. Like, hey, man, Jonathan Ogden's on that side. Jamal Lewis is over there. Ray Lewis is over there.
Why is it in my head I have this funny image of Jonathan Ogden with a putter? I just imagine Jonathan, the huge mammoth that Jonathan Ogden is.
Yeah, how do you get a set of clubs big enough for this man?
I mean, special order.
It's like, the images of like an elephant on a tricycle, on a unicycle. Like that's what I imagine him trying to putt. He's just like this huge man.
He's huge, man. 6'10", long arms, big hands, man. He's big.
His head. I remember thinking, how does he get a helmet on his head? When I first saw him as a child at McDaniel College going to training camp, I went, how does he get a helmet on that head of his?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you a good one, Dan, real quick. So the first time that I ever went to training camp was with Glenn. I was a young kid, and I thought when you're a kid, you think Ray Lewis is this huge human, right?
Yeah,
like I
was the biggest guy on the team.
Yeah. And so I go out there, and I pointed, and I'm like, oh, look, it's Ray Lewis. And then Bob Pierney, Mr. Pierney was like, no, that's Jonathan Ogden. The guy next to him is Ray Lewis, and he was like, yeah. And I was like, wait a second, what just happened here?
Oh my God! I didn't realize how I thought Ray was a taller guy, right? I didn't realize he was shorter but stockier. So when I saw him, I didn't like my shoulders are broad. I got broad shoulders, but his shoulders sits outside of my shoulders, like maybe a foot on each side. Like he just built different, man. He was built to be a linebacker in the NFL.
He built like a wrestler for sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure. Absolutely.
But Dan, thanks so much for coming out, man. It was absolute blast. I know the folks loved it. Thank you all for coming out as well. We'll be back, of course, on Tuesday night. That's it for us tonight. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Oh shoot. Accidentally hit.
It's all right. Thanks for having me, guys. It's all right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Just like my wife, always hanging up too early.